Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. More specifically, a brand new Albums I Missed video, our very first of 2023. Today we will be talking about a slew of albums that came out in the past few weeks, mostly in the underground, that I didn't really get the chance to talk about, but you should still know about because they're cool, because they're interesting, because they're fun. Possibly, maybe, hopefully at least. Maybe I just feel like telling you about some garbage. That's definitely the case for at least a few of these albums. Just a little heads up, just a little warning. But yeah, for the most part, cool jams and ragers and bangers ahoy. Apologies for this more lackluster video audio format presentation. Unfortunately, our good buddy Chompy here decided to once again fuck shit up here at Metal Meltdown HQ. So I just hooked up a webcam and a microphone to my laptop, and this is basically a Zoom meeting. It works, goddammit. It's not the prettiest, but it works. I hope you know, mister, you're grounded for this. No TV, no violent video games, and no more partying with those fucking hookers on Young Street. You should know better anyway, all right, buddy? All right, there we go. Okay, good talk, buddy. First up, we have a new EP from Sabaton entitled Heroes of the Great War. It is a compilation of sorts, bringing together a slew of songs from across Sabaton's discography, all of which are about heroes and events and figures from the Great War, more commonly referred to as World War I. It's by no means a terrible record, but it just feels kind of unnecessary and also poorly timed. Like, I don't think there's any Sabaton fan who wouldn't already know a lot of these songs, especially considering that they're all from, for the most part, more recent albums. And also, why wasn't this released before Christmas? Like, this could have made a decent stocking stuffer for, like, the metalhead in the family, you know what I mean? There's only one new song on this, The First Soldier, but I mean, it's so similar to everything else Sabaton have done as of late that it really could have been pulled from any of the last few records and you wouldn't have questioned it whatsoever. Yeah, it's not bad. It's just pretty much inessential, you know, and a completely unnecessary purchase or listen, unless you happen to literally be the most die-hard Sabaton fan on the fucking planet. Next up, we have Into Sorrow Evermore, brand new studio album from long-running Greek atmospheric black metal crew Imperium Dekadenz, who I've never really paid like a ton of attention to, but I've always enjoyed what I've heard from them. This new album especially, full of like really evocative, lush, introspective, dark, epic, atmospheric black metal jams, a lot of fury, a lot of energy, a lot of emotion, lots of gloomy, almost gothic guitar and piano work, contrasted with ferocious tremolo black metal riffing and some really heartfelt screaming and screeching. It's an album packed with life and heart and sorrow and misery and, well, atmosphere, hence why it's called atmospheric black metal. It's great. Check it out. We almost did a review for this. Had I gone ahead and done so, we'd be looking at a very solid 4 out of 5. Next up, we have Into Darkness, Evermore Profound from one-man funeral doom and black metal crew, the Howling Void, based out of San Antonio, Texas. There's a lot of slow-moving, mournful doom here with angelic vocals and synthesizer and string arrangements. It's a very immense album. It's a very immediate album, just kind of washing you over with waves and waves of melancholy and gloom and misery. I'm reminded of like some 90s goth metal at times, some classic death doom from a band like My Dying Bride. There's only 4 songs on the record, but they're all very long, densely packed, one of which is 14 and a half minutes long. Despite that, I don't feel like the record really overstays its welcome, and I also feel like there's just enough happening in each individual moment of each song to kind of keep your interest. It's maybe not something I would return to super frequently, but in the time I spent with this album, I did really enjoy this, and I would recommend this to someone who is looking for just something truly miserable, something truly depraved. Like, this is an album that, like, you listen to when it's pouring rain, and you do so with a whole bottle of red wine at your side. Next up, we have the Kingmaker from Screamer, finally something a little more upbeat. No more war, no more pain, no more misery, no more gothic black metal funeral doom melancholy. You know, just good old-fashioned epic trad heavy metal. Not the sharpest, not the brightest, not the most inventive, not the best polished, but you know what? There's a couple cool riffs here. There's a couple cool hooks here. It's got a good attitude, high spirits. It's simple, it's fun, it's straight to the point, it doesn't fuck around, and honestly, at the end of the day, what more could you really want from just a really classic kind of heavy metal record? Think like the machismo, the bravado, the epic storytelling of like classic Manowar, but filtered through the twin guitar heavy metal firepower of Judas Priest, and you're kind of in the right ballpark, you know? This wouldn't change the mind of anyone who just like fucking despised classic heavy metal or was bored with it, but I mean, for those of you who just want riffs and hooks and beats, you'll get all of those aplenty on Kingmaker. Dig in, eat up, have fun. Next up, we have Avstand from Slegest, or perhaps it's Slegest, I'm not sure. Here's what I do know, though. This album's kind of mean. This album's kind of dirty, kind of gritty, kind of fucked up. It's filled with piss and vinegar. It's got like classic underground punk and rock and roll energy with like the darkness of old school black metal. It kind of feels like really early Kveler tech, but like filtered through classic Hellhammer or even like Morbid Tales era Celtic Frost. Love the attitude, love the sound, love the feel. Every time I put this on, I feel like I'm in a fucking basement somewhere in like Norway or Sweden or wherever the fuck, listening to like a bunch of like local underground bands just absolutely tear the fucking joint to bits. I fucking love the guitar tone of this. I love the stripped down, minimalistic, intimate kind of sound and feel of this. I just think it's a really fucking fun record. Honestly, of all the albums we're talking about today, I probably had the most fun with this particular record. And definitely check this out if you're in the mood for, I don't know, what do we even want to call this? Black and roll, blackened proto-punk? I don't know. It's cool. It's badass. Check it out. Next up, we have Funeral from Isak Trilla. We've talked about these guys a few times here on the Metal Meltdown. Probably one of the hardest working underground metal bands out there right now. And I feel personally that Funeral might be their best album to date. It's their most concise, it's their most cohesive, it's their darkest, it's their most extreme record, it's their most ambitious, like soundscapes and vibes reminiscent of like really cavernous death metal and like really raw underground black metal. A lot of like really wild and grand and epic orchestration and songwriting that feels very much on par with like symphonic black metal and melodic black metal from the mid-90s. There's also some really weird kind of obtuse arrangements, some howling melodies and vocal passages, some really crusty, thrashy kind of little D-beat barrages here and there. It's a wild, almost schizophrenic, extreme metal smorgasbord of epic and wild proportions, and man, I love it. It's so fucking goddamn well made. I'm honestly amazed that there can be so much going on a record like this, and it's not like really overwhelming. Like some of the most insane, depraved vocals I've heard on like an extreme record in a while. Some of the best songwriting and production I've heard on an extreme record in a while. Like it's actually very well produced while retaining like this really raw, vicious kind of energy. With every video I've done so far this month, there have been like multiple motherfuckers saying this is it, album of the year for me. And I think it's obviously way too soon to even have that discussion. But if we're fucking gonna, this for me is it. This and like the Coral Tombs from Ahab, at least. I mean, this really is a fucking insane record. Honestly, perfect as far as the realms of like underground metal and stuff like that is concerned. Next up, we have Den Tapte Krigen, a brand new album from Russian black metal crew Bizarrekult. These guys have been kicking around for a long time, but despite that have only within the past couple of years been releasing new music. I like what I'm hearing on this record. A lot of anguish, a lot of misery, a lot of sorrow, a lot of trauma and pain filtered through like really angry kind of like black metal with like some post-metal, post-rock kind of soundscapes and arrangements and bits and pieces. Clean vocals and like a kind of like anxious post-rock, post-metal gloom and like classic black metal darkness all work together in a pretty sick, twisted, miserable harmony to create some pretty sick, twisted, miserable shit. Just another really dark, depraved, miserable, emotionally charged black metal record. Apparently, January 2023 is a good time to be into really, really emotional, like immersive, atmospheric black metal. I mean, Imperium Dekadenz, The Howling Void, and Oceans. You know, like holy shit. Next up, we have Supraliminal from Nothingness, an album which, truth be told, feels almost tailor-made for someone like me. I mean, there's a lot of old-school death metal tones and riffs and beats. It's beefy, it's crunchy, it's vicious, it's in your face. I'm reminded of, like, Morbid Angel, Immolation, Cannibal Corpse, but there's also some progressions and some more unorthodox elements and soundscapes, some janky riffs and arrangements that wouldn't be out of place on a Voivod record. And I really dig that, you know? I like that this record can go into some weirder, funkier territory while being, for the most part, a pretty solid 1-2 punch of old-school death metal. It shows versatility. It gives the record a decent amount of depth without going into any kind of crazy, artsy-fartsy territory. My issue, though, is I kind of wish it went further into that artsy-fartsy, funky territory. Like, I definitely feel like there's a way that this record can be an old-school death metal record while also diving further into the weirder influences and aspects. Horrendous were able to do this on Idol. I don't really see why Nothingness couldn't have done this here on Supraliminal. The result is an album that, while entertaining, is ultimately incomplete and only on the cusp of greatness. It kind of falls short of greatness. It's tailor-made for me, and yet it doesn't quite fit. The measurements are just a little off. Next up, we have the Weight of Remembrance from Tribunal. I've gotten a lot of requests to talk about this album. Multiple comments almost every day of the week from motherfuckers wanting to talk about this album. Well, you finally got your wish. We're finally talking about the Weight of Remembrance. Here's the thing, though. This is a good album. I'm not going to suggest it's terrible. But I think y'all have overhyped the fuck out of this. The sound is just a little too foggy for my personal liking. Like, I like how murky and mysterious it is, but I also want to be able to, like, hear everything, and I'm not. I also feel like the songwriting could be punchier. I feel like it could be more expressive, more emotive. I really like the fusions of, like, black and doom and gothic metal here, and I think songwriting-wise, it's definitely interesting. It's solid. But y'all were telling me that this was like an early album of the year contender, and I'm just not really hearing it. I am, however, hearing a cool record. You know, again, I don't want to say that this is a terrible record because it definitely isn't. I'm just not convinced it's this mind-blowing spectacle of epic proportions. But hey, ain't nothing wrong with that neither. It's still a cool record. Still check it out. For those of you who maybe have been reading some of these comments, maybe just lower your expectations a little bit. Maybe just a fucking wee little bit. Just a bit. Okay? All right? There we go. I'm gonna be eaten alive for this for sure. Motherfucker's like, how dare you? Oh well. Wouldn't be the first time. Next up, we have Everlasting Ascendancy from Malice Divine. Badass, brutal, epic, Canadian melodic death metal. Featuring our good friend Dylan Gowan from Banger TV on drums. A lot of badass guitar solos, gnarly, acidic, screeching vocals, punishing rhythms. I am kind of reminded to an extent of like the Black Dahlia Murder, but maybe filtered through something like Battlecross. With that in mind, I'd say the album also has some really cool kind of thrashy undertones, which I really dig. Like At One with Infinity, for instance, has this really badass full-on death thrash riff that had me fucking headbanging like a motherfucker on repeat listens. Just a fun, well-made, modern mellow death record. Definitely check this out if you're looking for something fantastical and epic and wonderful, but, you know, still doesn't waste time, still doesn't fuck around. And finally, let's begin wrapping things up with a new EP from Dungeon Wolf entitled Barbed Wire Tattoo. Longtime followers of the Metal Meltdown may remember that we previously talked about Dungeon Wolf back in 2021 when they dropped their sophomore album, Metal's Back, which I called one of the worst metal albums of 2021, and also quite possibly the worst, if not one of the worst, heavy metal records ever made. In response, Dungeon Wolf posted the following, and I quote directly, "Dear Mr. Metal Meltdown, it seems you have an affliction called poseritis. This occurs when a poser tries to review music which is intellectually beyond his grasp. Dungeon Wolf is moving forward with a new singer and guitarist and looking to record the best album off 2022 as well. Hopefully, you'll have matured as an individual by then and will have the intellectual capacity to appreciate high art. Hashtag get some." This comment is especially hilarious over a year later because Barbed Wire Tattoo was released on January 1st, 2023. Dungeon Wolf did not release anything in 2022, and in fact, to my immediate knowledge, did not get a brand new singer or guitarist because this EP features the previous singer and guitarist, Derek Helgem, I believe his name is. The same Derek that, may I add, very tragically passed away from a heroin overdose, which makes the inclusion of a song called Heroin Overdose on this EP especially tacky and disgusting. The fact that Dungeon Wolf would try to give me a lecture on maturity whilst leaving this absolute boomer bitch fest of a comment is in and of itself pretty funny, pretty ironic. But the fact that they would do this and then a year later drop a song called Heroin Overdose featuring a singer who died from a heroin overdose, I mean, it just reeks of obscene immaturity. Like, can you imagine if after Freddie Mercury died, Queen released a song called Holy Shit, I Love Dying of AIDS. Dying of AIDS is fun. Can you imagine if after Kurt Cobain died, Nirvana released a song called I Hope Everyone Shoots Themselves in the Fucking Head Tonight? Like, this isn't just the pot calling the kettle black. This is the pot calling the kettle the fucking N-word, and then proceeding to give it a lecture on maturity. Like, Dungeon Wolf, do you really not see how this could possibly be in bad taste? Do you really not see how this could have been perceived as being immature, tacky, gross? Do you not realize that not releasing a song called Heroin Overdose would have cost you absolutely nothing and nobody would have questioned it because nobody would have known anything about it? Are you really just that stupid? Like, 0 out of 5, right off the bat. I legit don't feel bad talking about this record and talking about the final performances of Derek Helgem, because as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing I can say that would be more disrespectful than the inclusion of Heroin Overdose on this EP. Or the fact that the album cover is literally just a selfie that Derek took, but they've edited out the cell phone for a skull. Jesus fucking Christ. Y'all have the gall to lecture me on maturity, and you do this. Eat a bag of rancid dicks. Also, your music still fucking sucks. I mean, it's sloppy, it's poorly put together, it's poorly fucking produced. You can tell me that it's unique and that it's high art if that makes you feel better. It's not. It's just bad. It sounds like a bunch of dads jamming in a basement for the first time in 15 fucking years. There are literally middle school marching bands performing with more precision and heart and talent. There is literally a child buying a guitar for the first time ever in a Walmart, and he is going to play those fucking major scales with more sincerity and more skill than any one moment of Barbed Wire Tattoo. If Metal's Back is the worst heavy metal album ever, then Barbed Wire Tattoo is one of the worst heavy metal EPs ever. Congratulations, Dungeon Wolf. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. Wow, we ended on a pretty fiery note there. Those are all the albums that I feel I missed in the month of January 2023. There were a lot of cool underground releases, so I'm willing to bet I missed a few more. Feel free to tell me about those albums in the comment section below. Press this button right here to subscribe. Look, more videos right here. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.